In an interconnected world, experiential learning is a win-win situation for students, corporates, and institutions alike. The use of case studies transforms theory into hands-on application, business success into personal growth, and students' perspectives from the confines of the classroom into a world of open possibilities. This is the core of what we do at El Pasador Business Research and Case Center. KCC's ever-evolving mission seamlessly integrates real-world situations into the student learning experience, equipping graduates with the practical skills needed to excel and thrive in today's global marketplace. On the corporate front, KCC offers businesses fresh insights and perspectives from students on varied industry topics, while generating a pipeline of qualified prospect leaders for corporates to stay ahead of the recruitment competition curve.
When I joined AUC as a faculty member in 2006, I was passionate about teaching practical content. And the idea was that I wanted to use case studies in my classes. And a lot of cases that we have in the market are from Harvard or Ivy, are excellent, but they may not all be relevant to Egypt. So the idea came that I would produce cases from the region, reflecting on challenges facing businesses in Egypt and the MENA. KCC was launched in 2007 with a generous fund from Mr. Hisham Al-Khazandar, who was a dear friend and a Harvard graduate, a big believer in case studies.
For over 15 years, KCC has carved itself a competitive niche as a pioneering leader in the MENA region, playing a significant role in the development of region-focused case studies, connecting businesses and students through industry-relevant case studies, as well as collaborating with major industry players on the local, regional, and global fronts.
When Dr. Ahmed Tulba from AUC came and pitched to me the idea of creating a center at AUC that would develop cases from our country, from our region, to be used as part of the case method of teaching, this resonated immediately. At this point in time, it's important to acknowledge, support, financing are all very important, but at the end of the day, ideas are about the people who execute them. And in this context, again, I want to acknowledge Dr. Ahmed Tulba, I want to acknowledge Dr. Iskandar Toma, I want to acknowledge the successive directors who led the KCC since its establishment, and of course, all those around the university who supported the center, from Dean Sharif Kamel to successive presidents of AUC, whether Lisa Anderson, Frank Ricciardoni, or now Dr. Ahmed Dalal. Really, it's the execution of the KCC directors and the team on the ground. It's the support of the AUC administration, faculty, and community that's enabled this center to be where it is today and to have the impact that it has.
From offering case workshops, holding case-solving competitions, and hosting conferences to support participation in numerous regional and international case competitions, students are always engaged in the real world as it unfolds.
KCC represents a platform that links industry to business for AUC School of Business. Over the past 15 years, our students, our faculty, our corporate partners, many of the alumni, engage in the development of case studies. Some of them are long case studies, some of them are mini case studies, but that reflect reality, that links theory to practice. And also it links our students to different corporates, different opportunities in the market. So it's again a bridge between what we do at the school and what happens in the marketplace.
Word of experiential learning, case studies is a vital pedagogical tool that bridges the gap between theory and practice and provides students with hands-on experiences. KCC has several partnerships and collaborations with case institutions across the globe that help us in providing high-quality cases after undergoing through rigorous review processes, as well as disseminating our cases.
Over the years, KCC has collaborated with leading pioneers of industry and academia. Its mark is significantly felt on the local, regional, and global landscape, and its influence growing far beyond AUC's borders to redefine the true meaning of tangible impact.
It's good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to AUC School of Business and to the 4th edition of the AUC Business Forum. Some of you, I'm sorry I have to repeat this because they've been attending with us the forum since we started yesterday. This is the 4th roundtable of this year's forum. And it's, as you can tell, it's about case studies as a pedagogical tool for business and management education. So I welcome you all, many of our alumni, but also many of our partners, colleagues, peers, but also people who inform us as we move forward on how to keep improving our programs, our services, and our activities. As Hisham mentioned in the video, he was the architect of the KCC back in 2007, which started as a modest operation to close a gap in the market. And what I mean by the market in the region, where everybody used to use case studies coming from elsewhere. Most obviously, famously, the Harvard Business School cases, which we still use, but we wanted also cases that are adapted to the local context. And that was the rationale and the objective behind building the Al Khazandar Business Research and Case Center. So over the past 16 years, they've done a lot, and I can't remember the figure, maybe 150 plus cases and mini cases. Some of them were sort of the idea of some of our alumni. Some of them were actually initiated by our faculty, but also some reflected a joint partnership between our staff and faculty and many of the corporates out there in Egypt. Also, over the years, we've had partnerships with MIT covering one of the issues of innovations, their magazine, at the time when the Global Entrepreneurship Program was actually hosted some 10 years ago, if my memory serves me well. Most recently, we partnered and worked together with one of our sister business school institutions in the region, ESCA, called the Management in Morocco, but also the Case Center to NACSB to help and contribute in different ways to initiate the Case Focus, the Journal of Business and Management Teaching Cases from the MEA region, Middle East and Africa. So this is a journey. I mean, you never get there. It's a journey that we as well as other constituents in the community, whether academia or business, need to work together to close that gap between theory and practice. And the manifestation of closing that gap comes out in the form of case studies. So that's why we picked case studies as a pedagogical tool for business and management education as one of the topics for this year's AUC Business Forum. And I look forward to the conversations and the input, because it's extremely important to us as we move forward. And I'll turn the mic to my colleague, Maha.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the roundtable. I'm Maha Murad. I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Studies, and I'm the former director of the KCC. And I have the co-chair, Inji, as well, and she's the director of the KCC. And we have Ahmed Tolba, the founder of the KCC. So that's why you'll find that we are so much emotionally attached with the business of doing cases and writing cases and teaching cases. Before I start, some housekeeping remarks. We will have our guest speakers. Each one we're going to speak for 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. And then we will going to open the floor for the participant. Please, when you start, just introduce yourself briefly, and then you have 2 minutes for participation, so we can just have more than one round. Either I will comment, or the dean, or any of the panel will going to comment if you have a question or a comment to raise. And this is, and definitely the observer, you are most welcome to have any remark. Just raise your hand and I will give you the floor. First of all, I just want to highlight the objective of this roundtable. The main objective is to get together. We are academic practitioners as well as publishers in one place, discussing the case writing, the case teaching, and creating this experiential learning environment. So it is a chance to build or to start building a community for cases in the MENA region. The beauty about this roundtable is that it represents different private and public universities in Egypt, as well as universities from the region as well. So this is our main objective. We all believe in case. We all believe that it is the tool to bridge between theory and practice, as we used to say. We all use cases to some extent. And also, we believe in experiential learning, and cases is one of the most usable tool when it comes to experiential learning. However, when it comes to practical side, in the MENA region especially, we have a lot to do. There is a lot of challenges that we are facing. There is a lot of actions that we need to take in consideration, and we need to react in a fast way. And this is mainly will be the topic of today, challenges. What are the challenges that we face from different perspectives, from students' perspective, why sometimes they resist having cases in classes, from a faculty perspective, why we are resist writing or even teaching with cases. Also, and we're going to discuss from professional point of view as well, why sometimes companies have this type of resistance. You can do all the effort and then there is a question mark whether to use their name or not. So we're going to discuss this as well. And moving from the challenge, we need to tackle the new trends in teaching cases. What is new? How could we enhance the learning experience? How could we benefit on this, especially to facilitate, this, and to shift the culture in the MENA region to use more cases? And finally, we're going to finalize with win-win. How to change the culture, how to have win-win from a stakeholder's perspective. So I don't want to take a lot of your time. We need to start with our guest speakers. So we'll start with Vicky Lester. She is the CEO of the Case Center UK, and she will going to start by tackling several challenges that we are facing in the industry.
And that's the first one with the mobile devices. Good afternoon, everyone. It is an immense pleasure to be with you all. And all of my career has been in the world of the case method. So to be sat round a table where we're only going to be talking about the case method is, a seat at a table where I'm thrilled to be at. So thank you very much for having us. The Case Centre, for those that are perhaps less familiar with what we do, we are a not-for-profit registered charity, and our purpose is, we're the independent home of the case method, and our purpose is to promote and advance the case method in business and management education. That's purely why we exist, and we're here for the whole case community. So we're here for faculty, business schools, students, corporate organisations. It's the essence of what we're about, anything to do with the case method. It's what we're passionate about. And we do, obviously, with being a registered not-for-profit charity, we do have to generate income, and we do that from the sales of the cases that we're an aggregator of case studies that are written by business schools all the way around the globe. And we sell them back to business schools to use in the classroom, to bring the real world into the class for the students. But we also support faculty and students through our training program. So we support faculty with how to write cases, teach cases, and also for students, actually how to learn by the case method, because it can be quite a new concept for students, particularly coming into the classroom for that experience. And a big part of what we do as well is all about recognition and recognising the vital impact that faculty have in the classroom when it comes to bringing cases in, having that impact on a student's learning, equipping them with vital skills that they need for their journeys. We're all on a journey, and the case method, we like to feel, is a big part of that, and the Case Centre is completely here for that community. So we're also celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, so you'll see lots going on in the social media about our activities, and we're hoping to launch a few different things and some initiatives this year to expand our breadth in recognising the Case Centre community. So we're thinking about challenges. We're all aware there's challenges probably in every industry and sector at the moment, particularly in HE institutions, and many of which were accelerated by the pandemic for sure. So I'd like to share with you today how the case method, we're facing some of challenges of its own, is an opportunity for business schools to address many of the challenges that they are facing. And you might pick up quite quickly that I'm quite an optimist. So with every challenge that I'll present, I have an opportunity sitting right behind it to present and share with you. And I've grouped these into 3 areas. We've got learning environment and educational platforms, the student experience and their expectations, and faculty development and support. So starting with learning environment and educational platforms, one of the challenges here is that the pedagogy might not be in the mix or easily accessible on educational platform providers, and there's many more coming in the mix. We've got OpenLearn, Coursera, Udemy, Study Group, Incendi, FutureLearn, Canvas, not far behind Amazon and Microsoft. Lots of different educational platforms coming in, and if the cases aren't there or the case method isn't seen there, there's a risk that it won't be taken. And also it can be viewed perhaps that it's not compatible on different learning environments. But this is where the opportunity side of it comes in. So hopefully most of you are aware the case method itself is one of the most versatile, flexible, adaptable pedagogies there is. And cases themselves are also evolving into different formats. We have the traditional style case studies, but we also have lots of variation of those cases coming. And they all bring, do you want me to click that one? They all bring the real world into the classroom. So cases themselves, as we know, they're real stories about businesses around the world. Through the pandemic, we noticed quite quickly that the case method is very adaptable to be used online. I think faculty realised they couldn't engage their students necessarily 100% of the time by lectures. They needed a way to engage the students, and the case method was a brilliant tool to bring online for their students. And there can be visibility on different educational platforms. That's part of our work at the Case Centre, to make sure cases are accessible on these different platforms that can be used. And the content itself with cases, you know, there's audio cases, videos, simulations, VR, ER, IR, OR, lots of Rs. There's lots of ways the case studies themselves can evolve that will still bring that real-world experience into the classroom. So many opportunities to address the learning environment and educational platform challenges. When it comes to student experience and expectations, some students may view this as an old pedagogy and perhaps not using the latest technology and not aware of the benefits that it does bring to their education in the classroom. And they might not realise the impact it has on their employability skills. So the opportunity here, well, first of all, the case method celebrated its 100th anniversary last year, so it's had its centennial, which is another reason why students might think it's out of date and dated, but it's been around 100 years for a reason. So the opportunity is that the case method itself equips students with vital work and life skills, even more so than ever before, and enhancing their employability with those vital skills and filling the skills gap that we hear quite a lot about that's being looked for by their future employers. And even more so, their ability to navigate uncertainty and overcome adversity is a huge skill that they can learn and acquire by the case method. So it not only brings the real world into the classroom for them, lots of different formats of cases can be taken in, including the latest technology, fills the skills gap, they get to test their theories, challenge assumptions, all of the theory and the practical side comes into the mix, debating solutions, all the analysis and negotiation. So part of our job again at the Case Centre is raising the profile of the benefits the case method does bring into the classroom to ensure students know what they'll gain from that experience of the real world coming in through the case method. When it comes to faculty development and support, particularly with the new generation of faculty coming in, they may also view the case method as perhaps being outdated and not compatible with different teaching and learning environments. And it is a big time commitment to write cases and to prep for class and to teach with class. But cases do a lot of the hard work for them in setting the scene of a situation that they can bring into the classroom for the students to really immerse themselves within that case and have that rich experiential learning, which is a key of what students want. They want that experiential learning in the classroom, and the case method can deliver that in. And with regards to the opportunity for faculty, well, not only are they bringing into the classroom lessons that their students will remember for life, it's bringing in that experiential learning, which, you know, they want their class to be engaged. They want to be engaged themselves in the classroom, and that's what the case method can do. And they're also delivering at the same time high quality teaching, and that's, you know, that's having a huge impact there. And also the case method itself can be a vehicle to bring challenging and sensitive topics into the classroom, which different mechanisms and vehicles, you know, can struggle to bring different conversations into the class, bring those real world scenarios in, but the case method can do that as well. And also it helps faculty create those local cases written by local faculty for local businesses. And that's what students want to relate to as well. If they can relate to the protagonist in the case and think, yeah, one day I could be that leader for that organisation, they want to know that they can succeed and be our future leaders. And the case method ticks so many boxes, and I could actually spend the 2 hours talking to you about the benefits of the case method, even though, as I say, it does have its challenges. But really, to summarise it all, challenges, yes, but they bring many opportunities. And the work at the Case Centre, it's our mission to advance the case method and make sure it's here for another 100 years to come. And anything that we can do to support and work with the case community, that's exactly what we're here for. And I've got copies which I can share. We did a survey, which some of you may have participated in, and you may have seen the results that were published on World Case Teaching Day, which was the first Wednesday in February. And it was a survey to the case community and academics about the future of case teaching. And we carried this out during the pandemic, and we refreshed this as most of us are now coming out of the pandemic. So there's some brilliant conclusions and facts within the document. I do have some copies with me, otherwise you can find it online. All of the results are on our website. So it's also a fascinating read, and it also confirms that the case method, you know, it is here to stay, it's very beneficial, and cases will evolve to bring those real world stories into the classroom. So I'll leave it there, but I'm just thrilled to be listening to the rest of the discussion and hopefully field any questions that any of you have. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky. It's really a transformation with the new digital platform. And I like your word, which is challenges brings more opportunities. And this should be our focus as well. So that's why we're going to move to Divwichi Mehta, the director of Middle East and South Asia, Harvard Business Publishing, for his speech.
Thanks a lot, Maha, for that. First of all, I think really... Thank you. Yeah, sorry. First of all, I think huge thank you for this invite, such a humbling experience to be present here and sharing insights around the case teaching method. And coincidentally, it also coincides when we're celebrating 100 years of case teaching method. The first case came in 1921. I think the Dean, Wallace Donham, is given a credit for launching this at HBS back in 1921. And there's an interesting story how he came up with. The case teaching method actually existed in the law school, Harvard Law School, well before the time. And Dean Wallace was an Harvard Law School graduate. And when he became the Dean of HBS, and he said, why can't we use this method to actually teach the business education as well? And that's when he tested with the first case, which was a one-page case study called General Shoe Company. It's still printed on that yellow page and around 4 paragraphs. Just a story, like last year, I was lucky to actually attend that case discussion by the Assistant Dean of HBS. And that's a story for the coffee corner when I can share you how similar it was to the world that we're living in today. But it's been 100 years since the first case. It's survived the testament of time, and there's no reasons, like as Vicky also mentioned, for next 100 years why this methodology should not exist. But what has changed is the learning behavior of the learners. The student of 1921 is not the same as 2023. So that's where the learning behavior has evolved, but so is the teaching methodology, but the case-based method as the fundamental has remained the same. So what is the case method? You all know that it's a participant-centered learning, experiential learning method way of teaching, where a student is kept as a protagonist and as a co-decision maker in a world with a constraint of limited information, short on time, and they need to come at a decision. And that so resonates to the world that we live in today. As the business leaders in our respective verticals, we don't have the luxury of infinite information. We don't have the luxury of infinite time and resources. But we still, as a leader, take those decisions. And that's exactly the muscle the case method helps for the students. And a student at HBS roughly goes through around 500 cases. So they don't call it 500 cases, they call it like 500 decisions that they learn to make during the tenure of HBS. In some of them, they are the CEOs, they are CLOs, they are the CHROs. So depending on the role that they're playing in, so they're able to flex their muscle, and it really helps them or sets them up for success in their career. The case method, as even Vicky mentioned, the formats and trends have really changed. It's not anymore a 12 or 25, 30 page long cases. Now there are shorter cases as well, especially targeted at undergraduate students, how they can be used in classroom. There are video or the audio cases which really helps replicate the real life scenario and brings them into the visual format, which are really, really impactful for the students. Now there are cases with detailed data sets if you're looking to hone the skills of data analysis for the students. And the list goes on. There are even cases with anime in it. So there's no limit of innovation, how we could innovate around the case methods. And benefits are multifold. A lot of those benefits were already been mentioned by Vicky, but I feel one of the strongest one is it's more of an active mode of learning compared to an active or a passive mode of learning, where it helps to get the best out of students and the learners when they're participating in the classroom. And in terms of when it's a participant-centered learning, you learn from your peers. I think it was a point which was discussed in the previous session as well, like how important it is to learn from your peers. The faculty or educator might not know all the answers, but your peers do when you're sitting in a classroom 40 to 50 students. That's when you're able to learn from 40, 50 different perspectives. That's the most powerful world. And also to bring real-world dilemmas into the classroom. We all know how world has changed post-COVID. The way business is done in 2023 was not the way that it was done in 2019. So how we can bring those real-world dilemmas to the classroom to ensure students stay abreast with what has changed, what has evolved, and that's something the case methodology could bring in that particular perspective. It's about how the decisions of a Netflix or the Googles of the world are making. Not only that, but even at a regional level, how some of the banks in Egypt or Saudi or Middle East region, they are performing. I think that's something is something very, very relevant. Then also, I think it also helps in aware and include elements of diversity, inclusion, and belonging. It's such an important aspect and so core to our mission. Back in 2000 or 2005, we were taught what is internet or what is digital. But now we are not taught that because everything is digital or it's on internet. Similarly, we feel very strongly for diversity and inclusion as well. We don't need to teach students what is diversity and inclusion, but in a way of method, if you're teaching marketing, finance, or operations, those elements should be included. We should be talking about more diverse protagonists like a Black leadership, women leadership, Asian or Middle Eastern leadership. And that's something case method inculcates that into your classroom, and which is difficult to achieve using a text-based methodology, which is very, very unique and helps students resonate as a woman leader, what sort of other challenges the person would have faced compared to what a traditional method would talk about. Then there are benefits and there are challenges as well, like how we overcome those challenges. That's how we can reap in the success. There's a challenge of students are not aware of how do they use learn by cases, because all through their K-12, they've learned using textbooks, which might change because very recently we've signed a very big deal with a big K-12 player which wants to bring these cases in the K-12 segment. So it's a very inspiring change. But right now, as of today, in the undergraduate segment, students are unfamiliar with this methodology. There is around little resistance from faculties. How do we teach effectively using cases? Also, how do they assess students using cases? That's another feedback that we receive from educators. And then they also look for local context. Looking all these perspectives in mind, we at Harvard Business Publishing, being a mission-driven, not-for-profit firm, it's something very, very core for us, how we can solve for them. Like, first time, like on the students unprepared with cases, we have created this really engaging a tool called Case Companion, which helps students learn using case methodology. It's a bite-sized, less than 1 hour solution for students and delivered in a very, very engaging format. And when it comes to helping student faculties around learning to teach with cases, we have a big research and editorial team with a core objective to help the educators of today. So our core mission statement is how can we help students of today to leaders of tomorrow? And we've realized only way we can achieve that mission is we help the educators of today. And that's why a lot of the ecosystem is provided to them. Is it through the sessions or the seminars that we conduct, or also through some of the one-to-one resources that we have created. We are in plans of creating an online course for educators which helps them teach effectively using cases. Also, a lot of our cases now comes with video from authors who help them, like how do you open the case, how do you debrief a case. That makes it really, really, really easy for faculties to conduct that particular case study in the classroom. And when it comes to local context, we have a Harvard Research Center focused primarily at the MENA region. They're based out of Turkey, where they create content which is contextualized to the Middle Eastern organizations. And there are plans around converting some of our existing content into Arabic language as well, so that we are able to overcome that challenge. Still early steps, there's a long way to go, but that's something like well begun is a great start that we can look for. As a last segment of my address, want to share around the opportunities in the MENA region, why case-based methodology in the region. We all know like how the MENA region is going through such a disruption. We're looking to diversify our economies, we want to diversify our businesses, so we need more skilled workforce who can make those challenges, make those decisions. In a world of chat GPTs, maybe we don't need a workforce to make a manual work, we need smart decision makers. And I'm going to leave with a note which Dean Nitin Nohria had penned down during this case centennial celebration at HBS. He said like there are 7 meta skills which this case methodology flourishes within a student, which are so difficult to teach. The first one is preparation. I'll be running through because this counter is just staring at my eyes. But the first skill is the preparation. Like when a student go through the rigor of preparing for a case studies, to be like cognizant of being cold called in a classroom, they go through that rigorous preparation before every class. And that gets inculcated as a habit, and you know the well-prepared managers make better decisions. And whenever they're going for any of those assignments, it becomes as a core habit. And that's a feedback we got from an HBS alum meet that, okay, that's something that's really prepared me for my career. The second one is discernment. We're living in a world which has plethora of information, a little too much of information. But how do we dissect it and get the best of information? That's another thing case methodology teaches. Because a lot of times by design, a case will have a lot of information which is not even relevant for the decision. It will have the background, it'll got the history. But how we can eliminate that information and really focus on the core, that's again a methodology which the case methodology teaches. The third one is the bias recognition. We know that if I'm majoring in finance, I might focus or look at a case just from the finance perspective. So will a marketer or an operations person. But as a well-rounded manager or leader, you need to look at all perspectives in place and remove those biases. And that's, again, the case methodology. As you keep learning with the cases, you know how you want to overcome that particular bias and look at a more bigger picture at a whole level. The fourth one is the judgment. Every case study, most of the case study will say that being a case protagonist, how will you arrive or how will you solve this particular solution, this particular question. The judgment skill or the problem-solving skills is so needed in the world of today. That's, again, a muscle which is really practiced using a case methodology. The fifth one is the collaboration. When we analyze a case study, you work in small teams or you work in big teams, or even when you work individually, you don't just look at a solution which you've arrived at yourself. You hear about the opinions from the others, and you collaborate and create one common solution. I think that's a skill which is so needed when you're working together in the teams with diverse backgrounds, socioeconomic, racial or gender backgrounds, and how do you collaborate together? That really makes it a powerful solution, and which is as a muscle you can help students build with. The sixth one is the curiosity, which is something I really could resonate very deeply when you're learning from a case methodology. Sometimes you are a CFO, sometimes you are a CEO, sometimes you're working in a mining industry or a shipping industry, and sometimes you are in the e-commerce sector. And by that, you know, okay, what are the skills or industries that you really resonate with and really helps them to align their career, where they want their career to move. I want to be in a marketing in an internet firm or want to be in a shipping industry. Through cases, you can understand that particular perspective. And finally, is the self-confidence and be a risk taker. Like when you're presenting a solution in a classroom of 30 to 40 of your peers, it takes courage, it takes a lot of effort to present them. So that really builds in the self-confidence and an ability to take risks or to think out of the box in a safe environment. So these are the core 7 meta skills which really brings in. I think the last quote I'm going to leave is that by using case methodology in the classroom, you are going to leave your students with the lifelong benefits which will bring in that rigor and the structure in their own future lives, career lives as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Divish. Thank you. I guess we totally agree that the students are not the same, and hence using different methods, different approaches in delivering the case and teaching the case is a must now to be able to cope with the new generation, actually. And totally agree that it is time-consuming from a student point of view and from a faculty point of view as well. So sometimes we have a resistance to prepare a long case. So this is from a student point of view. Let's look at other stakeholders' point of view as well, with Dr. Virginia Bondolica. She is the professor of management and the head of the management department and the chair of leadership studies at the American University in Sharjah.
Give me a second. Thank you so much. Thank you for this amazing forum. I'm really proud to be here. Yes, we've seen different perspectives from different stakeholders, and I can take any perspective because I've tackled the case method from so many different perspectives, being an editor, being a professor, being an administrator, and being a writer of case studies. But as I reflect about the case method, I would like to reflect first of all, what is going on in the world. And I assume that there were a lot of discussions in the forum about the reality of today's world. For me, I see the changes in the world right now that we are all living together in, being clustered in 3 big trends. I call them eras, today's eras. One era is the era of digitization. We all agree with that. So we have the pressure to digitize our content in the classrooms, and of course we see the pressure that the business world has in terms of transforming themselves and bringing something, at least part of their business online. So digitization. Second one, networking. Isn't it a beautiful opportunity that we all have to be here together, to connect, to network, to share knowledge, to disseminate that knowledge, right? And that's how we create knowledge, that's how we exchange, and that's how we grow. And the third one, so the second was era of networking, and then the third one, which I strongly believe in, and I think that the case method actually creates a lot of opportunities for that, is the era of cross-disciplinarity. So we see all the reports in the future of job reports of World Economic Forum where the cross-disciplinary skills, the critical skills, analytical skills, interpretation of the data, soft skills, all those are the skills that are highly valued by the employers, and we have the obligation to train our students to develop those skills. So the era of cross-disciplinarity, where we bridge the gap between different disciplines and we work together by bridging those silos. So I would say cross-silo mindset. So this is the third type of era, and at the same time, breaking those silos is a challenge. So those 3 trends that we're all living right now, and we have to embrace this. I would say we are in this ballet train, right? To paraphrase that movie with Brad Pitt, right? Either you're on that ballet train, you embrace the change, or if not, you are left out. And what the case study methodology allows us to do is to embrace that change. And I think that this is right here, right now, the amazing opportunity that the case community has to do. As we were exchanging with Angel a bit before, and that's thanks to the amazing work that KCC is doing, allow me to praise them a little bit. they're doing an amazing job to connect the case community. And I think we have the amazing opportunity right now to stand out, to push for credibility, to say we are strong, to be proud of what we do, right? And what the case methodology also does, it connects a lot of stakeholders. And we've seen here already, particularly the perspective of the professors, or not the professors, but the editors, journal editors. We will discuss a little bit about students, professors, faculties, reviewers, editors, protagonists, the corporate, all those. But as we embrace the change, guess what? Out of all those stakeholders, who has the highest resistance? Who? The faculty, right? So from my perspective, being a faculty myself, if we succeed as the case community to convince the faculty, there are a lot of gains to be taken out of the case method for your academic career, not only for others, but for your personal academic career, then the pride and the commitment in doing this and pursuing the case method is gonna be increased and implemented. And obviously, we are going to have positive spillovers on other key stakeholders who, from my point of view, are, of course, students and their corporates, the business world. But even more, we are right here in this beautiful region of the world, in the Middle East, at the same time, Egypt is unique in itself, and some other countries also from the continent, being an African country, being an Arab country. So we have the potential to make the change. Where? Here. And notice that, transforming economy, not developing, not emerging, transforming. We can transform ourselves and transform others. This famous developed world that we can sometimes challenge to what extent this is the case. So if we go back to faculty, how can we convince the faculty about the benefits of the case method? Well, just looking at what the case methodology has to offer. And in general, cases present the opportunity to embrace skill variety. So being an academic myself, I do publish scholarly research, and I do write cases myself. So I know that the type of skills I need in order to be able to write cases is completely different from the type of skills I need in order to write and publish academic articles. So the variety of skills and the confidence that gives me, being a faculty, when I do develop cases myself and I write them, and then I put them in a publishable format for others to use, and then when they reach out to me and say, can you please share, because our library does not have subscription, but please, I would love to read that case and use in my other classes. So this is really a huge recognition to the fact that people out there recognize that the case method increases in importance. Another thing, personally speaking, from my personal experience, and if I can act like an influencer, Kim Kardashian of the case studies, whatever. So I would love to say that personally I benefited a lot in my career because I become more versatile as a teacher. So I do see the confidence I have to give so many examples, and of course to engage a lot of students in the discussion and make them comfortable, because they know the companies, the protagonists, and then they can very easily put themselves in the shoes of those stakeholders and those decision makers, and then reflect on the experiences from the subjective point of view, and then provide some recommendations. So this is another part of the benefit. Another thing that I personally benefited in my career was in promotion. That's strange enough, even though people will say that it's always about academic research, scholarly impact, citations, and it's going to be strangely enough, and I always say that as an influencer and promoter of the case method to my colleagues, my peers around the world, you know what? The amazing opportunities that I got in terms of consulting, the reach out, the executive education programs, the invitation around the world to speak out about this method is thanks to the case methodology and to the fact that I'm writing a lot of cases. So a lot of mandates for consulting. Many companies are actually asking before delivering a consulting project, and even the training to the company is to develop first a case study on the company itself, and then come and deliver the training through the case study of the company, so that people, employees in the company, can work on their specific case. So that's another opportunity where faculty can benefit from. And obviously the gap between theory and practice that we always talk about, and also this possibility to have more realistic knowledge and impactful knowledge that can be transmitted to students. And the last one is really the sense of fulfillment. So to what extent we feel that we do something meaningful, where our classes become engaging, but also that community out there, we can reach out to that community and bring the knowledge of that community into the classroom. So with that, if I were to conclude for the benefits from the standpoint of the academic career, definitely the relevance, the opportunities to reach out and to convince about the relevance of our teaching to the students, to make that nexus between the academia and the real world, so that students have the opportunity also to engage in this practical world. And then obviously, not to forget, we had the perspectives of the journal editors and publishers, that we have still that imperative of publish or perish, and we have more and more journals where we can publish our cases, and those journals are indexed, at least in Scopus. And this is already also counted in many promotion files for the faculty. Now, knowing that this is the case, if we can convince the hardest cookie out of all those stakeholders, the faculty, the most obvious spillovers that we'll see is going to be for students and it's going to be for corporates. So the students, what we see definitely is really that mindset of learning and growth. And it allows the students to also connect realistically with the world and to have this better opportunity for employability in the future. I always say that what students can learn and get in terms of their personal skills and their knowledge is something that I put in 4 T's skills, 4 T's. T, trailblazing. It's very curious method, the case method, versatile. It's, I would say, it promotes the liquid mindset. It can be molded, shifted, and shaped in a way that corresponds to a specific environment and context. The other one is tool making. Students can take the case and come up with a tool. The 7 S, the 4 Ps, name it, and then provide this as a kind of consulting mandate to the business world by translating, the 3rd T, translating the knowledge from theory into practice and helping even the practitioners to get more understanding of the newest trends in theory. And the last one, obviously, team working. We are all working in teams, and then this is having a lot of importance more and more, and we'll never be able to work alone to improve ourselves. So team working became and already continues to getting more and more influential impact in the academic world and in the business world. So the 4 T's for students, and of course bridging the gap and going into the corporate world. And corporate world, it's, I would say, 2-way streams. Obviously, we can get the benefit to get speakers in our classes as faculty, but also encourage students to have those competition on the cases of the companies, and then by defending those cases in front of the companies themselves and corporates, they can get internship and job offers and many opportunities to actually grow their careers within those companies. Now, to address the corporates, I would say in today's changing business world, we have the emergence of a new paradigm, the emergence or the rise of impact academic, not the one who does only scholarly research, which we admit is important for our promotions, but then who is reading this academic research, not really the practitioner. So the impact academic is the one who really makes a difference in the corporate world and speaks real language, real practice to practitioners. So I wouldn't be me if I cannot conclude with one influential quote, and I think this is really very relevant. In my recent trip to Boston, I visited MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I've noticed a very nice quote, and I love to conclude my speeches always with influential quotes. And I've seen that quote posted on the door of that lab, innovation lab. They're very creative, they're curious, and their mind goes beyond all the boxes. And then what I've seen there is really relevant, I believe, to our session today. Theory is when you know everything, but nothing works. Practice is when everything works, but no one knows why. This is where theory and practice come together in their lab. Guess the ending. Nothing works, and no one knows why. I am personally convinced that the case method gives an amazing opportunity to transform this last sentence into everything works and everyone knows why. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Virginia. It's really nice. And it's really, we feel it. We feel the proud that you have while teaching cases. And as she summarized, it's a matter of closing the loop. The faculty feel the win-win, and the corporate feel it, and the students. So for the faculty, you feel unique in the class while you're teaching with cases, and for the corporate as well, participating in writing, teaching, and having a real impact on the education system and on the students as well adds a lot of value. So let's start the discussion, starting from this point. Why to use cases, and what is the impact that you will have while using cases, that you believe you will have, and you have, and what is the impact? Yeah. Let me just start. Yes, Dalia.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation of today. It's really a very important issue, at least for me. I see it from different perspectives. I'm Dalia Ibrahim, chairperson of Nahdat Masr Publishing House. It's a very distinguished publishing house in the MENA region for 85 years. I'm also a founder and CEO of an important, from my perspective, it's a very important thing, which is a corporate venture capital called AdVentures, specialized in education technology startups. We incubate, accelerate, and invest in education technology startups, and we are the only specialized venture capital in the region in EdTech. So I come from a bit academic background. I studied at the AUC 3 times. I graduated from School of Business undergrad, and then have a Master of Public Administration, and I graduated from also a Master from Executive MBA. So I believe very much in case studies. As a student, I practiced this by myself. I felt the importance of it. I was the first group of graduates of the Executive MBA, 2014. I still remember case studies till now. Some of them are affecting my business till now. For example, one of the models was Zara model of supply chain. It's amazing. I think about it all the time, and others, definitely, I don't want to waste your time. So from the student perspective, it affects me till now in my business. And also, I have several hats, wearing several hats. The case studies affect this. When I hire employees in some positions, I give them case studies, and according to their analysis and their feedback, I decide whether to hire this person or not. And in the same time, for the existing employees, especially the ones that I want to get them a special business coach or make training programs for them for development, I get special companies to assess them through even case studies. So they help me as an employer. On the third hat, I was honored actually that the AUC selected our company, Nahdat Masr, to make a case study on our family business. And definitely this was a great thing for the company and for the family to have such a distinguished organization to make a case study about our company. So these are the 3 different hats. And additionally, from the startups perspective, we don't have enough case studies that can support startups, although the AUC now is making this now, and this is very important. Startups need this heavily. So what we do inside our corporate venture is that we get startups to tell their stories to other startups to help them and to support them. And in the third direction, also when someone wants to start something new, for example, when I started the corporate venture capital, actually there were very rare companies that have their own corporate venture capital, and in the region it's almost very, very rare. I didn't find any case to read about it, so this would have helped me very much if I found case studies about this concept. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dalia. We totally agree now among senior students, they start telling each other through word of mouth that cases become part of the recruitment process. So that's why we have a pressure from a student's point of view, from student side, that they want more cases in the class to get ready for the labor market. Any other comment? Yes, Noha?
Thank you very much for a very interesting roundtable and for inviting me to be part of it. I want to make two interventions here. My first comment is depending on the issue of faculty development and support, which Vicky mentioned, and then also Virginia raised. I want to talk from my perspective as Vice Dean. I'm Vice Dean at the German University in Cairo. So we consider cases, full-fledged cases, as a publication that can be considered in promotion files. So this is one issue to encourage, from an institutional perspective, to encourage faculty members to write case studies. And then also we, in the journal I edit, which was founded by our faculty, Management and Sustainability and Arab Review, which is by Emerald Publishing, we also accept case studies as publications, pending that there is a case consent form to be signed. This is traditional in all case publications. So this is the first issue. The second issue, also from faculty perspective, case studies can be used as exams with midterms, mostly with final exams. So many of our faculty members, they use case studies, especially in postgraduate programs, they use case studies as final exams. Sometimes they are take-home exams, even for students to analyze and write reflection papers about. So this is one incentive also for faculty members to develop context-specific case studies that they can use in their courses. The other thing is recently also some colleagues have used student projects as a basis for case studies, and even went a step further to ask students to write in teams under supervision of the professors to write case studies as part of their project submissions in classes. But this is done on senior level, so like undergrads, but senior undergrads, where they can write case studies under supervisions of professors, and then the best case studies can get published. So we are also moving in this direction. The last point I want to make is, which is the second issue, from perspective of the other stakeholders, that most case studies cannot be written from public sources. So they need insider information from corporates and from organizations. So this is where stakeholders come in to support the development and write-up of case studies. Please provide information for case writers that can help write a good case, because good cases cannot be written from public sources. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very good insight as well, and you are tackling two important issues. The first one is the promotion, which I guess is not the case in all universities. Yani, correct me, because in some, including our university, because the dean is just beside me, we have top-tier journals to be counted in the promotion. So hopefully one day the case will replace one of the top-tier journals. Yeah, every year as well. The second point also that you highlight, and it's add a lot of value, what is a good case? How could you define a good case if the faculty need to write his case? So what is a good case? And I guess, Dr. Ahmed.
Building on what you started, and also to answer the question of what is a good case, I think there is a dire need to have some kind of index to evaluate cases, something similar to a citation index that says the value of this case, how many times it was taught, and so on. There has to be an index to evaluate cases academically before we can ask that they become eligible for being a criterion for promotion. I have three other points I would like to raise. One of them is the idea of co-teaching cases, because the 7 meta skills and what Virginia said and Vicky, they all talk about how a case should encompass not only the discipline, like it's marketing or finance, but it should encompass all the disciplines, at least take them into consideration. And that will come with co-teaching from different disciplines, cross-discipline, cross-silos, whatever the term. And also there is the idea of encompassing the view of all the stakeholders including the community, of course. And I think that should be part of a good case, is that it looks at all these stakeholders, not just a particular part. And that can be achieved in teaching cases, and I used to do that. I did not introduce myself, but I've been teaching cases for almost 40 years now, and in every respect, in consulting, in teaching, in executive education, all over. And I think that sometimes I use the students to role play. So I take one or two students and give them roles. You are this representing the consumer, and you're going to critique everything we say from a consumer's point of view, and you from a legal point, and so on. And so you give them roles into the teaching. The third thing I think is very important to consider, and Dalia will be interested in that. I think that there is a theory in consumer behavior, and worked on that, which is kids grow older younger. What the 15 years old know today is what we did not know when we were 25 years old, at least I did. So I think that students, and I've seen, I'll call them kids, 13, 14 years old, and they're thinking of starting their own business. And I think to wait for them to be 18 years old and come to the university to start telling them about business is unfair, to say the least. And I think that the case method is a great way to reach out into the K-12 and start teaching business. I think it should be taught right after primary school. I think it should be taught in the preparatory level, grade 7, if you will. We should start teaching business, and we should start teaching it using case studies. Of course, talk about who's going to teach it there. That's another story. But the technology can help in that, because we can always have, with the AI technology, we can always have highly professional professors do some deep learning, deep machine learning, and have the machines support the teaching of those cases in the schools. But I believe that we will have a different world if students at that very young age started to learn how business is done and managed. Another point I would like to take is, the final point is that I think the 7 meta skills you talked about, and also what Virginia talked about, the 4 T's and everything you said, makes me want to do a deconstruction of the case method, deconstruct it into the basic ingredients of it, and then reconstruct it again in different ways, integrating technology, integrating the needs of different ages, integrating the needs of different parts of society. I think that the case method is almost ripe to go into and venture out into new areas, not only into secondary schools, but I think also in managing business, not just teaching students about management, but actually in managing business. I worked in consulting for decades, and one of the things I used to do is I used to bring the team and let us build this case. Let us write this case from all your perspectives, and let us solve it together. And I think Amira's here. Amira worked with me for 10 years, and we did that all the time. We constructed the cases of the clients, deconstructed it, and reconstructed it again several times to try and come up with the best configuration. I think the case study method, after 100 years of implementation, is ripe for this kind of exercise. Deconstruct it into its most basic elements, and then reconstruct it again into new shapes and forms. Thank you.
I think you're right. I think when you said K-12, it's definitely going to happen in the next couple of years. The collaboration I was talking about with one of the leading international boards. So next couple of years, inshallah, I think we should see that. I think second thing when you mentioned, like I think a really powerful point, like to really mention like how many cases have been cited or used. That's something we have tried our hand to call out something like a bestseller or a classic, depending on how the case has been used or adopted. But it's something as an input should be very, very powerful to define how we can take it forward. But let's connect, maybe want to like brainstorm more around deconstructing like methodology could be powerful. I think we could discuss and brainstorm on sidelines. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's hear from Iman.
Hello, my name is Iman El-Ghazali from AUC School of Management. I'm a professor of economics and the director of it's good now? Yes. The director of the business case studies. I want to highlight a few points, starting by the question asked. A good case study for me, it's a study about local characteristics of our region. Our region overflows with very interesting situations, company situations, and a good study can be also internationally debatable. So locally rooted, but internationally debatable. It will satisfy the need of local students to study their own environment, their own context, and can be also interesting for international students to discover other practices from other regions. So for me, this is the first thing for a good case study. A second thing, and for now, a good case study must reflect the changing workplace landscape and be digital-driven with digital-driven formats. So Vicky talked about the ER, VR, simulations, cases. We are talking about cartoon cases and many other formats. There are many challenges for this. First, the cost of this digital formats. Second is the teacher's own experience and how we can train and have this continuing training for teachers. I'm a case method trainer, but I need to update my knowledge for these new formats, these new trends. And allow me to talk about the recognition gain, because I think it is one of the reasons why we don't have many case studies, especially in the region. Now we have journals and peer-reviewed journals for cases, but case studies are less rewarded, are less recognized. And I think the review process is the same for some journals. And I think this is one of the reasons. I agree, there is the own satisfaction, yeah, with students, they enjoy the class, right? But we need also this recognition as a teacher. And Vicky talked about the impact. We all know that the impact for cases, for students, this is the purpose, the first purpose for a business school. It's to give this impact and to allow students to have this impact. Thank you. Thank you. Vicky, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you very much. So with the different formats evolving of cases, we're trying to develop a suite of webinars that actually support faculty, have an introduction to these. The date isn't coming to mind, but I know we have one on cartoon cases coming very soon, so have a look out for that one. With regards to the recognition, that's a big part of the work we do to recognise faculty that are writing cases and teaching cases. So we have our annual awards and competitions. Actually, they've been announced today. The award winners of 2023 have just been announced all over social media. So if you're following us, you'll see that. And that's part of our work to try and recognise and raise the profile of the schools that are writing cases. A lot more to do, but we hope that that's a start for it through the competitions as well. And I just wanted to come back to a point. My son at the minute, going back to Ahmed, definitely agree, high schools and the case method, you know, business from a much earlier age, because he's choosing these options, or he's chosen these options already. So from an early age, they're getting them to think about what do they want to do, what do they want to be. So absolutely, the earlier we can equip them with those skills to get them thinking in that mindset, fully on board with that. So thank you.
Great. Yeah. Marina? No.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Marina Apaydin, Associate Professor here at the School of Business at AUC, and I'm absolutely delighted to be among like-minded people and who are passionate about the case method, teaching and learning cases. And I would like to reflect on the very important part of producing cases, which is basically what are the two main criteria drivers that you need to produce a case. I believe the two main drivers is an ability to produce a good case and a motivation. And many people talked about motivation. I think we didn't touch so much on the ability, so that's why I would like to focus on ability a little bit, and specifically regarding the senior students that were mentioned before who can write cases. I think the motivation for the senior students, especially our students here at AUC, is a challenge. So to challenge them, they want to take this challenge. The young generation, they like challenges and they like to achieve, they are achievers, I would say. And to challenge them to do something which they haven't done before, such as writing cases, and also maybe giving them the opportunity to teach others how to write these cases, because after all, teaching is the best way of learning. For that, we heard many different letters today. We had 4 T's and 3 E's, and I would like to propose another one, which is 3 A's. This is, I would say, you need a system to produce those cases. System starts with the first A, which is awareness. Awareness, when you teach case, you need to tell the students how to solve the case. I was this unfortunate engineer who found herself at UCLA in '94 without any knowledge what the cases were, and I was asked to solve cases, which was very difficult to do without having any tools. So we need to teach students how to solve cases. We need to teach professors and writers how to write cases. So this is the first awareness. Usefulness of the cases and how to teach or write cases and solve cases. The second A is analysis. Analysis goes by itself. It's the solving of the cases, the process of the solving of the cases. Students get their hands dirty and they start solving cases in the classroom. And the last one, last A, is action. Action would be writing cases. So if you take the coursework, in the beginning you teach them what the cases are, why you need them, then you teach them to solve the cases, and as a final project, they can write a case study, which can later be converted into actually published case studies. Of course, not all of the case studies done as a course project can be converted. Maybe 10% can. And it will require additional work, editing, structuring, improving, and sometimes students are not ready to participate in these activities. So we have a great support here at AUC from the Case Center, and that helps those cases produced during the course afterwards take them and publish them in different outlets. And right now, as I would like to finish by mentioning that right now, we had 5 cases written by the SEMS program students about Egyptian leaders, very prominent leaders, and I would like to thank our leadership for connecting me with those leaders, because of course without just from public sources, you cannot write a good case. So these Egyptian leaders granted the interviews to the students, the cases were written, and right now they're in the different publishing stages at Emerald, the Case Center, and Inge, correct me if I'm wrong, what other outlets. So we have these 5 cases, and this was 100%.
And the case focus as well.
Yes. So I think we have a great system here at AUC, the School of Business, and KCC was definitely a pioneer in this area.
Yeah. Thanks, Marina. Anna, I totally agree that for us as a faculty, one of the best and easiest way is to use students' projects and transfer them to cases. So I guess we are doing this, Irene and then Ahmed, and then we'll return back.
Thank you for the invitation. It's working, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm Irene Shaker. I'm an assistant professor and marketing program coordinator at Mr. International University, and I'm also an adjunct assistant professor at the management department in the AUC. I would like to briefly comment on 3 important points. The first point is the importance of using cases in our classes, and this is why we're here today. Definitely cases are very important because they bridge the gap between theory and practice, and they allow the students to apply the concept that they learn in class to real-life examples. We do not only teach the student the steps or the magical formula for success, if there is any. However, we show them through cases the difficulties, obstacles, and the challenges that the companies are facing, and how did they recover from these challenges. And I think it is important for us to teach students the steps for success, as well as how to recover from challenges, especially during this hard time we're facing all over the world. This is the first point. The second point are the challenges we face to incorporate cases in our classes. And let me call this challenge, there are lots of definitions today, 3 E's and 3 A's, and my definition or the title for my challenge is Watch versus Read Challenge. What are students doing these days? Right now, while we're sitting here, students are using different social media platforms, and they watch. They watch reels, they watch videos, and when they come across a post with some written content, they just very quickly skim through it. So students are reluctant to read, especially when it comes to something like 15 or 20 pages case. And I think the solution to that, we should make better use of multimedia and video cases. I already attended a webinar last week with the Case Center. Congratulations on your 50th anniversary. And during that webinar, it was highlighted that the percentage of usage of multimedia and video cases is increasing. We should make use of that. And allow me, according to research, when you see a person, hear his voice, and observe their nonverbal communication, your brain makes a stronger connection to them. So we must make use of that in our classes. Is it easy to develop multimedia cases? Definitely, it's hard because it requires more technical expertise, equipment, and costly. However, we must go ahead and try to make better use of these in our classes. This is in addition to shorter cases. If we are using mini cases, sometimes it's easier for the students to use, especially at the undergraduate level. These are not replacement for the written cases. However, these are few tips we can use in order to better engage and interact students with the case learning process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Ahmed?
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief. First of all, I would like to thank the speakers, fantastic talks, and we were just having a quick photo before the session, and we called ourselves the case lovers. So this is something really very interesting, that it's a community, as you just called it, and that's why the case and the publications are always hard to do, and I'm very happy that at the GUC it's included. What we try to include in publications at AUC is to give a percentage for cases that are relevant or publications that are relevant. So it's included somehow in the promotion, but the weight is not as high as we would love to have, as case lovers, of course. No acronyms, so I'm not going to talk about acronyms, but although I love that. I want to mention a couple of added points, because I fully agree with all the great comments that were mentioned here by my colleagues. Number one, I want to mention something related to using cases. I think producing cases is a challenge, and you all talked about it from all stakeholders. But I think sometimes faculty need serious training on using cases. I personally believe in the famous word of less is more, and having less number of cases, but deep ones, rather than just offering very good cases to students to read and write a report on, and without in-depth discussion. So I think that's something that I think it's hidden. It's not, we are all focused on producing the cases more, but that's something that I guess needs more workshops, and maybe online material would help in that, and more monitoring. So I think that's something critical. Another thing, I would like to echo what Marina was saying, and Marina is an incredible expert in cases. By the way, she was very humble in her talk, but she produces maybe the largest number of cases I know anybody had. But producing cases of classes is something incredible. And I did that as well. I had an MBA class last semester on business consultancy, and the students worked on a real-life consultancy project, so they learned how to scope the project from the beginning, and we got them hooked with companies. It's exactly the same as what Sam's students did. And the output is fantastic. So I think utilizing the students in the writing process and writing the teaching notes is the case analysis as well, learning of the case analysis as well is there. So I believe this experiment is working extremely well. So because we always have the challenge of having the faculty committed to write and then having case writers to help, but having the students involved in the process is something incredible. My last couple of points about, it's very nice, KCC has done some couple of stuff that, a couple of initiatives that were very interesting, is to compile several cases into, let's say, case books, or at least a series on a certain topic. So we were talking yesterday about sustainable finance, about family businesses, and many other topics that are quite current. So having cases on a topic and then building a research paper or white papers or a research report on that industry, I think will be another impactful factor of using cases that I think is very interesting. My final point is about Arabization, and we're very happy that KCC has started the Arabization process, because I believe that everybody should have access to cases, and especially in our region, very few universities are blessed to be able to read and analyze cases, high-level cases. But having the Arab language and making them simple with shorter versions, of course, would be very good in disseminating them in the other universities with larger number of students. So these are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. I totally agree with you, and based on what you mentioned and Irene mentioned as well, having joint cases together, in addition to what Dr. Ahmed mentioned, to have joint teaching the case, but joint writing the case as well, will add a lot of value, because we have multiple skills, just like writing any normal academic paper. Let's move to the corporate view to some extent, and start with Hanan, and then Jailan, and then we can come to Hazm.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Hanan Musalhi, HR Director for Hassan Alam Properties. For me, case studies has always been part of my growth. So it's been used at selection, development, promotions, so it happens. And I'm not looking at it from a pure student perspective here. So it's a comment and a question at the same time. Case studies brings the theory into action. Part of our work in human resources is to collaborate with campuses, and we develop a lot of campus activities, university relations. So there must be an opportunity here that I see for corporates to help the academics in building case studies. So I guess not only in terms of interviews and sharing cases, but also maybe in facilitation, analysis, and others. And I can't think of any other ways to collaborate, but if there are other ways to collaborate, it would be great to share it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanan. I'm sorry, Jailan, but could we go to Hazm, because he has experience in helping us in writing cases, so he can just reply to your comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Mahi. This is, for me, a moment of gratitude to Dr. Tolba, actually. 10 years ago, I was, at this point of time, the commercial director in Procter & Gamble, and I knocked the door of Dr. Tolba's office, and I asked him for help in helping P&G hire better candidates. And this was the moment where he introduced me to the case study method, and it was the first time for me, despite I am an AUC graduate, to someone to explain to me what is a case study. I wrote something. He told me that I'm good enough to be a content writer, but I think it was pretty amateur. And since then, the case study competition of Procter & Gamble has been one of the key selection and hiring activities that worked extremely well for P&G. Few years later, I moved from the world of Procter & Gamble and FMCG to one of the Egyptian success stories, Mountain View, in real estate. And here I tried to find any proper document, academic document written about real estate business in Egypt. And I am sorry to tell you, it does not exist. If I search for real estate in Egypt, I will find things related to the US, Canada, Europe, Singapore, but nothing is properly written about this industry that is representing maybe 16% of Egyptian GDP, nothing is written. And here there is a big opportunity. It is an opportunity for the AUC and the Khazindar Case Study Center, and the students, the undergrad, and maybe probably specifically the undergrad students in the business school, and the big local companies, whether in real estate or other industries, to write things that are relevant, that are properly written. And I build on what you said. Can I get your name, please? Because
Irene.
no, I know Hanan. Hanan, I know Hanan from PNG.
Irene.
Irene.
Yes.
Okay, and I build on the point of Irene that future case studies should not only be published as written documents. Every case study should have a video version, and maybe to be more interesting, and especially if the heroes of the case study are still living, we do interviews with them, we produce something nice. So maybe some big local companies, whether Mount View or any other company, they fund, they sponsor to have content written, well academically studied content written, and well produced. And then it will reach more to the masses, especially in understudied industries in Egypt. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Could we just move to Jailan? Okay, Mona, please just open the mic. Yes, you can. Sorry, Jailan.
No, I just wanted to add that I did write a case study about Arabco, which is an Egyptian, yes. You probably didn't see it, but I did. Okay.
Okay, Jailan.
Hi, I'm Jailen. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for PayMob, and thank you for inviting me here. Not to repeat what Hazem was just saying, and maybe Hanan, as a young entrepreneur, starting up a tech company like in the early years of 2020 and even before, there's no data on the MENA region when it comes to tech companies. So everyone we search for the Ubers of the world, the Stripe, all of these companies have case studies based on them, but the macros are completely different, and the data for the consumer behavior even is completely different. So while the strategies work, but the tactics would never work. So just from my humble point of view on what I would love to have seen on case studies while we were starting the business and while we're growing the business up till now is, first of all, moving away from just strategies and moving to tactics, and more than what worked, what didn't work. Would love to see, like, on very successful companies, what did they try and never worked, and how did it fail, and on the other hand, what did succeed on the tactics side. Other thing that I would love to have seen, like real life data on the MENA region, because maybe it exists for something like the supply chain or maybe the FMCG world because it's older, but on the tech part and maybe the digital part, it's still very early on, and it would be very helpful for young entrepreneurs to see really how the data look from a macro perspective on that. Also, from another perspective, since we're participating with AUC in building case studies currently, would love to see more of a framework on how can we help, and actually how can the case study help us. So rather than just, as Hanan said, just sharing insight, preparing interviews, how can the students come in and help us on campus? They would know things that we wouldn't, and they would teach us about things, series that we may know nothing about or learn the hard way by just practicing. And we can add, like in real life, examples on how the day-to-day goes. But thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Aileen, for what you said. And I'll tell you something you all know. It's not that I'm going to tell you a surprise. The first time I wrote a case study was probably 30 years ago. And since then, I've probably written 4 or 5, so not that many. The question is, why can't we write so many good, detailed case studies where we can ask the question, like what Dr. Ahmed mentioned, and dissect the whole story again. And to Hazm's point, they should be, and to Ireen's point as well, they should also be dynamic, not necessarily written in text. Because at the end of the day, it's a storytelling. At the end of the day, it's a story. And I can't remember who said that you can't get it off the material. You have to have first-hand access to write the case. The problem we have in Egypt, and to a great extent in the region, the companies do not want to share the data. As simple as that. And when they share the data, they share the scratch surface, hardly.
Minimum.
Years ago, we actually tried to talk to corporates. If you are really keen not to share, for example, the financial statement, which is key, share with us financial statement dates back maybe 5-6 years before, still. So we've done 150, including mini case studies, but the ones that count were corporates who saw the value of sharing their experience, the failures before the successes, so that those who are going to read those case studies can learn from and improve and excel and so on and so forth. But sadly, the culture itself until today, because if you think of it, in a country like this, with that size, with the N number of family businesses, I promise you, we could have had 10,000 cases in the span of 16 years. But the question is, the material we get is not rich enough in every single case. You're addressing the space of startups. Great. So at least we can have tech-enabled startups over the last 15 years. How many of those startups would want to share the data? Wallah, I'll be surprised if they exceed 5. من كل اللي طلعوا.
Actually none. Share the data. But the idea is, how the data is being asked to share, maybe that's what scares startups. This is the idea, them sharing strategies and what did work and how that impact their numbers, that they would be willing to share actually. This is something that I would speak for myself, this is what we would be willing to share. But in a competitive landscape, of course, no one wants to share their
that's the key.
Yes, I understand, yes.
Well, again, just to wrap up my point, why did I do 4 or 5 case studies? Because the thing is, I then reach out, for example, to Muhammad and asked him to write a case study on his company. He actually, 5 or maybe 4 even, friends of mine who started up companies, 10 or 15 years later, came to me and said, we want you to write a case. What do you want? And then they opened the drawers. Strategy بقى على marketing, على finance, على issues, على problems, على hiring, and then you pick and choose the angle you want to write. But other than that, we will always be limited. So this is an invitation. There are so many companies here. And I was going this round. There are so many companies around the table here. If you're willing, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, let me just move to an example of a company sharing the data, Americana. So Kiralos, you can just share your experience with the case competition.
Okay. I guess it's working. Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this fruitful roundtable. First, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Carlos Risk. I work in Americana Group as supply chain planning and project section head in the ambient subcategory, responsible for 7 factories. I myself have some academic background, around 5 years of being a teaching assistant in different universities in Egypt and outside of Egypt. So lately, Americana started focusing more into youth empowerment programs, and we have been trying different models across the past 3 or 4 years. But in 2022, we started looking into the case study model, and that's why I guess I was chosen to lead the project, me and some of my team. So the first thing that faced us while starting to build the project was how to build a good case study, which is, I guess, the first question that we were discussing. And the second part was to be able to fulfill the requirements to build a case study. Are we willing to share the data? Which is one of the toughest obstacles, to be honest. So we were able to create like a specific or a model that can fulfill both requirements that we need. First of all, we targeted 40 students in a team structure across public and private universities. And we distributed them across different tracks. We didn't want to get them involved in all our departments at once, just to make sure that we can control the data flow from the company to the students and the traceability of the outputs they are going to share with us in the end. So, of course, after getting the students to sign confidentiality contracts and all the legal stuff, we shared with the students not only the actual numbers that they are going to need to calculate the outputs, which, by the way, we did not give them a written case study. We simply gave them an objective and an area to play and try to reach this objective. And we asked the students after orientation, which data are you going to need to reach the output that we are looking for to get from you? Then we shared with them the historical case studies of people in the past who tried to solve these specific issues and reach the same output as they tried. So not only we gave them output or like a deadline or a specific goal to reach, but we wanted to share with them with each team 4 or 5 case studies, realistic case studies with the same inputs, with the same tools that we are going to provide with them. And to be honest, the grand finale is still upcoming on the next Thursday, but until now we have really seen some amazing outputs from the students, which they are, I guess the oldest of them is in his 2nd or 3rd year. So they are still young, but they are very energetic. I have seen students staying in the factory for 12 or 13 hours. So I guess the model is really getting the outputs that we were expecting. And most importantly, the top management now is requesting that we repeat it next year using more departments.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's the experience we have.
This is a very good experience for us as well, especially that it's a chance that a lot of undergraduate students in Egypt from different universities, public and private, they got together to solve the case. But my question for you, is this for publication?
Well, we, please repeat the question again.
Yeah, could we publish the cases?
Well, that's the drawback for sharing realistic data.
Yeah, this is the point that Dr. Sharif was talking about. Yeah.
But yeah, some of the cases could be published, of course.
Yeah, we can just discuss this later on. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Ahmed, yes, just quick
I know
one,
I took
please.
a turn as a faculty, so let me take a turn as a consultant now.
Okay.
I think there is some industries we've learned, and from cases, that some industries have radically changed, either boomed or died, when they merged with another industry. All right. So the music industry, for example, when it merged with with what Steve Jobs did to the music industry, the producers changed and everything changed. What I'm thinking is that this is an industry. The case studies is an industry. It's a case study of itself. And I think that you ought to integrate 2 other industries into the building cases and producing cases and disseminating cases. I think one industry you ought to look into is the consulting business, because we as consultants, I told you I'm wearing the other hat now, we as consultants, we have a wealth of information. And I don't think that we are entitled to release it.
Yeah.
We cannot do that. But I don't think also that you need the actual data. You need the essence of the data. You need the meaning in the data that will explain how the decision is made. And therefore, the knowledge that the consultant has would enable him or her to be able to, because they have the real data, but they cannot release it. But what they can do is they can not simply disguise it, but recreate it or reconstruct data that would not reveal anything about the company, but would reveal everything about the dilemma and the decision and the complexity of what you're trying to explain in the case. So I think you need to bring some consultants in, good consultants, and I think that even the multinational consulting firms would be interested to cooperate in that respect, to bring in the essence of the decision and the essence of the data rather than data itself. That's one. The second thing, and building on Irene is really very, very insightful, and what you said earlier, also all the R's, as you said, is to also bring in a certain industry that has touched upon cases and found it to be very lucrative. And this is the cinema production companies. You can see today many of the very successful series are like Suits and others. They are built about businesses. And people watch them because that's one thing that we all experience every day. So we know about it really well. And I think that they can be used to produce cases at their own expense if they find a way of making it. But if we help them to bring in the proper inputs and the proper scripts, we can have their professional script writers write cases, but they have to team up with our professors and consultants, and we have this team. And today, writing is a team project. You say it's written by a workshop, a writing workshop. Yes, we should have writing workshops for cases, and we should have a script writer in the middle of us. And when we talk about the university, we have here a center, which is Kamal Adham Center, and they have the capacity, they have the people, they have the equipment, they have the studios, and I think that we might seek to cooperate with them to have those case writing workshops that includes script writers, producers, directors, mukhrigin, and also the business professors, and maybe even consultants.
Yeah, this is a very creative idea, honestly, and interesting as well. So let's have Dr. Gamal as well for your insight, please.
I should like to thank you, Maha and Dr. Sharif, for inviting us. I always, when I come to the AUC, I feel that I'm students learning from the speakers and from the audience. Actually, I will take the discussion in a different direction a little bit. And I guess that's also a conclusion of what's said so far. Yeah. Teaching, using a case study as a teaching methodology in Egypt is a dilemma. And I will tell you my experience as a head of the largest business school in the Middle East, which is Cairo University Business School. We actually used to buy a case study from top publisher. But by the end of the day, we discovered that the instructors and the faculty didn't teach them to the students. And all the time, they keep asking students to recall the knowledge. What is marketing? What is finance? Solve this problem. Address this issue, write an article on this, or do multiple choice exam, whatever like that. We need to end up this session by addressing this. How to promote the case study as a teaching methodology in Egypt, because we have unique features compared with top nations like the USA or UK or whatever. We are struggling, first of all, to write authors that can write better case study for teaching. I will say we are crying out to find someone that can write a better case study. And by the end of the day, if we give them a case study about Apple or about General Motors or whatever, they are not in our region, and they are in a different context than our context. So let us see who are the stakeholders that will be benefiting from the case study as a teaching methodology. Number one, as Virginia said, the faculty. So far, we are unable to convince our faculty to use the case study in teaching. That's one struggle we need to solve. And as a researcher, or as I like you to take into consideration how to get or to do a sort of training, or maybe you can actually go around universities and make sessions on what are the skills needed for someone to teach using case study methodology. I'm a regular writer, by the way, for the case study. I recently also published a paper as a case study in a top journal. And that's why I like you to differentiate in your discussion between case study as a research and the case study as a teaching methodology. They are two different paradigms. Because in our discussion, I feel that we are actually conflicted about that. So we need to address the faculty, how to get our faculty engaged in teaching cases in their classroom in different in different classes and different subjects. Number two, students. We have to take into our account the skills of our students. I will say, based on my personal experience, if I have time to speak, our student today is far better than us when we were students, because they are taught in English, so they can actually adapt themselves very quickly. But I feel so far, I'm so sorry to say that the shortage and the problem is in our faculty. So also we have to take into in consideration how we can prepare our students to learn how to deal with case study as a learning mechanism for them to read data, to analyze, because by the end of the day, the case study aims three things: to help the students to communicate well, to help them to understand the decision dynamics, and to help them to solve problems. And there are three important skills for them to build up when they graduate and join any organization. The third action, so faculty has to be engaged. A student should be taught how to deal with long case study or short case study, whatever. A corporation, we have to also to engage a corporation in what we are doing inside the universities, because all of you mentioned that the difficulty to collect the data. And I myself had to do a case study in a foreign subsidiary in Egypt, top auto assembly firm. And when actually I had like formal and informal interviews and secondary data, they told me, you have no permission to publish, to disclose our name. So I was unable to publish it. But I use it in the teaching, no problem. Okay, so we have to also, there is actually a new educational model nowadays emerging, I like it, and we need to read about new educational institution model. The course is taught based on collaboration between a faculty member and someone from the industry.
Yes, we have to see.
By doing so, we'll get them actually to bring the data with them to our university, and maybe they can understand why it is important for us and for the business community and for the university community to work together toward improving our economy, because by the end of the day, we have a joint interest. So that's another issue. Resources and support. We do not actually offer our researcher or our faculty resources to do a case study, for example, to write a case study. They have to get money. They have to get recognition. They have to give time. They have to get, for example, an academic leave to do a visit for some companies or whatever. Also, we need also to take into our, if we will write a case study for publishing, as Dr. Sharif in his discussion said, that it has to be recognized by the university. If someone write a good case and publish it, for example, in Emerald or whatever, they have to be recognized and appreciated, and the work should be published. Also, we have to build a program. Actually, this program helps us to learn the skills and competencies needed to write and read a case study. Because and I had a chance in the GUC, I was teaching the GUC because Dr. Noah is here, 2007. So I used to teach a strategic management course using case studies, but it used to be a multinational companies. So I gave them every group of the students, they had to deal with a case study. When I came to the exam, I asked them to solve the exam. I got them a case study, and I said, you can have an open book and then answer the exam. They spent 4 hours. The exam actually assigned 2 hours, and I get them 2 extra hours to deal with the case study. At that time, I was shocked. They are unable to act quickly. And that gave me an indication that they were unable to learn quickly, because by the end of the day, we need to read data quickly and to decide quickly. But that didn't happen at that time. The student was in the MBA level. They are very young. All of them are professional. They are familiar with the business and financial data and so on. We have to sort out all these issues in order for us to establish a strong case study methodology in Egypt or in the MENA region. We have problems, we have to address these problems, and we have to build like roadmap on how to promote that in Egypt and in any other countries in the region. And we have to take into our consideration we are different I would say, in the knowledge and comprehension level compared with the advanced nation. And that is very important for us. I'm sorry for that. Again, I do really appreciate this session and the invitation I received. And thank you, Dr. Shukran.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, Professor Shahata, you gave me idea for another roundtable, because you raise very interesting points in the context of Egypt. But let me just, again, in the interest of time, I will not be able to cover all the points that you mentioned, but seriously, I mean it. So this roundtable, the objective was to look at a case study as a pedagogical method in business management education. What you're saying is, in the context of Egypt, that's why I think it's worthy of a completely different conversation, and we can discuss that, and we're more than happy to organize that. But based on what you said, and again, this is an open invitation for Miss International University, GUC, and of course Cairo University, and all our sister organizations. We're more than happy to organize workshops, to Dr. Tahir's point, on training faculty, not just to teach using case studies, but actually writing a case study, because that's I wouldn't say it's an art, but it's something by itself. And we've done that in the past, by the way, to ourselves. I attended, we've done 4, I attended the first 2, and this one dates back in the early 90s, the other one was the early 2000, which is already a long time ago. So we're more than happy, and I will reach out to you all, and we can organize that. So that would address the point when it comes to the faculty development and so on and so forth. The rest, I think, is worthy of us discussing the elements that you've shared in the context of Egypt, because there is one element, and we will not get into that today, and I think there are more expertise in the room, more than I am in teaching case studies. One thing that strikes me immediately when you say Cairo University Business School is the size. I mean, teaching case studies with that size, I'm not sure how to do it, but we'll leave that to another, maybe dissect the class into multiple sections, what have you, but we'll leave that to another.
Explain something quickly. We have a variety of programs. We have programs similar to what you have here with a short number. We have a bachelor degree with Georgia State University. We have an English section. We have an actuarial science program. They are small numbers.
Great.
Vary from
There's a room to start. There's a room to start.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and I'm extremely sorry because we are running out of time. Just before we leave, and I just want to hear the voice of the case writers. So you can just have the floor.
Thank you so much for the invitation today.
Sorry.
I'm just going to make a quick note of some things that you mentioned, the importance of cross-collaboration and having people from multiple disciplinary backgrounds. I come from a journalism background, and I got into case writing when I was doing my master's as an intern with the AUC Business Review and with KCC. So I think it's very important, as you mentioned, having people from these different backgrounds, especially now that case writing is becoming more of a visual means of education, and students now want to see more than just read. So it's important to use all the tools that you have on hand as you are writing, whether it is audio visuals, whether it is photos, whether the exhibits that you have in your case. It adds so much depth to the case, and I think it helps get the point across to students, and even it personalizes a very dry case of facts and figures. And again, I would just stress on having people from all these different backgrounds.
Thanks. This will be one of our next move, to enhance the skills. A final note by Iman before we close.
Just a small point. I think we need to use cases from each other, because we notice that business schools from a country are using either local case studies or international case studies from Europe, United States, and Asian, even Asian cases. I think it will be important for students from Morocco, for example, to study company situation from the Egyptian market, It will be very insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I will leave the floor to Ingi to do the wrap-up and the closing. But from this very wide discussion, I guess the next step will be to enhance this KISS community and share cases and so on. And also the idea of having a citation index will add value to all of us, because this will give more value to the case, and it will be recognized as a ranked piece of intellectual contribution. Thank you.
Okay, I will try to make it as short as possible, given the very rich discussion. Now we all agreed that business are done in a totally different way, especially after the pandemic, and this made the modern learner, as we may call, totally different in their mindset and their expectations and their attention span, and we have to adapt, as Virginia said, otherwise we'll be left out of the game. There are new trends with case studies, with the multimedia, with the AI, with the simulations. We also discussed very interesting acronyms like the 4Ts, the 3As, the 7 mega scales, which are lovely. We also discussed the watch versus read challenge, and that this generation, they have very short span in reading and being focused, so we have to cope with this, whether with multimedia. Thanks, Dr. Tohar, for getting this brilliant idea, because actually it has been on KCC plans for the past 6 years to have multimedia cases, and the problem is always securing funds. So, and happily we are having the first multimedia case. We're working on it and will be launched in 3 weeks. So we are there, but we still have to move quicker because the market is moving very fast. And the idea is to have cases adapted to our market, and this is what everyone on the table has shared, that we need cases from our region, about our region, so the students could relate more, the faculty would feel more at ease relating to, and answering the questions of how corporates can help. Some of our consultancy classes, actually, they bring the corporate representative to the class, they co-grade the presentations, so they get the insights of the students feel that their ideas are recognized and appreciated, so it's a win-win, if we will say. And the main objective, and we're very happy that we had this roundtable to get the case community within the region together. It had took us really years to build such a community, from practitioners, case writers, faculty, and everyone that is involved in this process, and all the stakeholders. We have also discussed all of the challenges, that cases could be outdated, incompatible with new platforms, students' resistance, and we have discussed heavily the faculty resistance and the problems that they face, or the reluctance that they have in getting into this, tap into the case study field. We also discussed the lengthy publication process, not being counted in the promotion and tenure, and we have also discussed solutions. We did not only tackle problems, we said that institutions could start counting it in a way in the promotion and tenure, the citation index. We could also have the recognition awards, whether from reputable publishers such as Emer, the Case Center, Harvard. We try to foster this culture so as to make up for this, like I would say, like shortage. Also, case studies, they offer a great chance for collaboration between peers and teamwork. They offer the students a chance to be a co-decision maker, and they step into the shoes of the protagonist and they put themselves in this situation. So what should they do? So this puts them at a stage ahead rather than just being a student. We also said the cross-silo mindset and the cross-disciplinary between different disciplines. In the case, it could be tackled from finance, from operations, from marketing, and this is what we usually call the joker case or the joker player. We've also addressed co-teaching as well as co-authorship, and this could be a way that could open up new horizons for new areas of case studies. We also said that there could be themed cases about family businesses, sustainability. So also if they are themed, like Haizem said before, like the real estate, the industry, then they would be a valuable and rich information source. We also said that case study is an industry in itself. It needs the merge of other industries. Basically, consultancy and cinema production could bring a lot into this. And finally, last but not least, we addressed the fact of the struggle with the faculty through training faculty in using as well as writing case studies, meanwhile training students into crunching the cases, working under time pressure, because this is part of the real world. And also the need that we have to regionally share cases between us, not only locally or internationally, but across the MENA region. Thank you so much. Thank you for this insightful roundtable.
You were very fast. Bravo, Jan. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your insights. And as I started at the beginning of the session, saying that this is exactly why we're here, just to inform us and my colleagues on how to move forward, but also get your insights as sort of people in industry. And we're trying to bring industry into the classroom as well as take our students into industry. So I would like to thank very much the speakers, but also the participants of the session. You are more than welcome, by the way, for those interested to attend tomorrow's final roundtable of this year's AUC Business Forum. Please note that the content of the session of today is going to be put together in a document, and it will be shared by all the participants. Also, we're more than happy to share with you the papers of the other roundtable conversation. As I said at the beginning of the session, one is on sustainable finance, the other one is on family business, the third is on micro-credential, this one, and tomorrow's final session will be on the future of teaching economics as a discipline while integrating seamlessly and effectively the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you all for coming, and stay tuned. We'll be in touch again soon. Thank you. And Angie is telling me, please come here for a group photo.